All right, Cardinal family, two things I wanted to talk to you about today. Number one, our plan for that week of May 17th and the professional development we have scheduled. And number two, and I think I've mentioned this in some posts before, about how the brain craves the balance of novelty and routine and what that means for the time that we have left with our students. So first of all, within the text of this post, you're going to see a pretty much fleshed out schedule for that week of May 17th. You'll also notice there's some things where it says details forthcoming, but I literally had some of our professional development providers calling me minutes before I started to record this, still working on some of the logistics. I'm going to continue to work on that, but this schedule should give you a really good idea of what your obligations are. On Monday the 17th, that's a really important day for us because that's more Marzano professional development, specifically with Debbie and Gary, specifically on learning progression scales, and specifically where you're not going to be talked at, but you're going to be working on. What Debbie and Gary want you to do, and this won't be the only time I say it, and I'm going to ask principals to repeat it as well, on Monday the 17th, bring 2 standards that are important to your instruction for the upcoming school year. If there's standards that turn up in your instruction frequently during the year and they're high mileage ones, bring those. Debbie and Gary want to take you through developing learning progression scales for 2 high priority standards. They want to be able to teach you how to do that, facilitate that time so that you can work on mastery of those learning progression scales and so that you can continue to work independently on that later. So that's the other thing I wanted to mention about that week of the 17th. There's also a pretty decent amount of unstructured discretionary time. Any time that I don't have you obligated from the CIA office and your principals don't have you obligated on specific building level things and it's your time, I want you working on those learning progression scales. Pick more standards that are going to have an impact on your instruction for the next school year, and based on what you learned from Debbie and Gary, continue to work on those learning progression scales. Now, I want you to do this at a reasonable pace. You don't have to do this with full throttle, foot on the gas the whole time. I want you to pick up a standard that's important. Work on a learning progression scale. Get up from behind your desk, walk over to the lounge, get a cup of coffee, stop by someone else's room, ask what they did this weekend, talk about the learning progression scale that you've been working on, ask about theirs, maybe grab somebody to collaborate with. This doesn't have to be an intense sense of urgency. It's just time that we have that can help us get better at what we're working on for next year without the imperative of students are about to walk in the door. So that unstructured time, that discretionary time, is in that week for a reason. It's because you guys are professionals, and I know that you know what you need to work on, especially if we do a good job of equipping you with the knowledge you need to work on those learning progression scales on Monday the 17th. So that's what that week is going to look like. And again, I'm going to say details still forthcoming on some things, but this should give you a really good idea. Second thing that I wanted to mention, because the end of the year is weird. And one of the things I firmly believe is that the more normal you keep things, the easier your life is, and the easier the lives of your students will be as well. We have this temptation as we wrap up the year, because things do feel different, to just throw our normal routines out the window. And man, that makes for more work. Now, full disclosure, when I taught U.S. history to 8th graders, I was that guy who on my last full day with students, I gave a year-long comprehensive exam. Yeah, that was me. But I wanted to keep teaching because I really dug teaching, and I thought what I was teaching was important for as long as I could. So if our last full day with students was a Thursday, and that's how it frequently shook out, on Tuesday, I was still teaching new content. On Wednesday, we did a game show review for the comprehensive exam. And on Thursday, we did the comprehensive exam that took the whole class period. The longer you can maintain normal instruction, the less of a headache your life will be. Now, why is that? I worked with a brain research guy named Larry Miller, and one of my favorite sayings that he had, I don't think I've mentioned this before. I think that I mentioned another one where Larry liked to say the brain that functions best is mildly stressed. Anyway, if I haven't, we'll talk about that another time. But Larry liked to say the brain craves a balance of novelty and routine, meaning novelty, what's new and engaging and unusual that stimulates the brain. Number two, routine, what is it that we can count on is going to continue to happen so that we have some order in our day. There is enough novelty as we roll up on the end of the year. We don't need to engineer novelty. Things feel different as summer approaches. A lot of things get pushed out of our normal routine as we approach summer. So my advice to you, know that novelty is already inherent in the end of the school year, and put as much routine and normalcy and consistency in what you provide in your classroom as we roll up to those last days in May. I think that's good for instruction. I think it's good for our students. It's good for continued learning, and I also think it's good for our own mental health and our own pending fatigue as the year rolls into the end. The last thing I'll mention too on this is you guys got to remember, this time last year, we didn't have our students and we hadn't had them for a long time. And though we are all ready for summer, myself, yourself, our students included, every minute that we have them this spring is a gift compared to last year. So don't let that go to waste. All right, I think that's all I have. Keep doing what you do because it's working, and I'm looking forward to that week of the 17th, which is a weird thing for me to say since we're asking you to come back longer, but we're going to do our best to make it valuable. Thanks, guys.